Welcome back to another episode of Empowered Intimacy, getting your sexy back after breast cancer. I'm Melissa Berry and I'm here with my friend Deltra. I absolutely loved our last episode where we talked about hitting the dating scene after breast cancer diagnosis and treatment. If you missed it, definitely check it out. Today we're going to talk about the often overlooked topic of sex and intimacy after a breast cancer diagnosis. We'll discuss the impact of chemotherapy and medications on sex drive, dealing with vaginal dryness, managing pain during intercourse, and the importance of emotional intimacy. Tune in to learn about strategies to navigate these challenges and discover new ways to connect with your partner. I love that we're giggling already. This episode, folks, is about sex. We're going to go there, Deltra, I think. I mean, yes. The first 3 episodes, we got through some stuff, but I've been looking forward to this episode a lot.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah. I mean, let's just go right into it. Like, sex after diagnosis. Did you have any issues? Did you have like loss of libido or any vaginal dryness or anything that like interfered with the fun?
Oh my gosh, you are just going there.
There was no foreplay in that conversation.
Foreplay,
I didn't warm you up.
It's all right. That's what I'm here for. I will say that I felt really, really fortunate that I haven't had a lot of the experiences that, I hear all the time from my survivor sisters, which was extremely fortunate for me as I was, diving into dating, and I know that would have made it so much more challenging.
Right.
I felt like my experiences mainly came from, the struggles I experienced were mainly to do with body confidence, getting comfortable with my body, and then kind of fighting back against my fatigue, because my fatigue was really my big enemy. I didn't feel like my libido was gone. I just kind of felt like the fatigue was getting in the way, like I'm way too tired.
Yeah, and listen, on a good day, like take breast cancer or any kind of, illness off the table. If you're tired, it's very hard to be in the mood. And then you layer, treatment. It's a fatigue. I think it's a tired that it's so hard to even explain. It's so heavy.
It is, and I've experienced a lot of different types of fatigues. That's why when my oncologist would ask me, like side effects, how's your energy level? I'm always like, yeah, I'm really tired, but I've been really tired since like, when did I become a mom? Like 2006.
Right.
So I'm like, it's hard to know what kind of tired I am, But chemo tired sometimes it is a really different tired.
Yeah, well, your whole body is like fatigued. It's not it's not like, oh, well, why don't you just take a nap and you'll feel better? Or, honey, maybe later. It's like, no, like sometimes the fatigue can last for days, if not weeks.
Yeah.
And it's hard to fight it. I think, like I kind of alluded to this in an earlier episode, I think that my anxiety and like where I was struggling in my marriage, my libido was almost non-existent when I was diagnosed. And I'm sure there's a lot of women out there that could probably relate, because it's sort of like, how do you get your sexy back? And it's kind of like, hang on a second. Like, I didn't even have that much of that going on before I was diagnosed. So like, I need to really dig deep here. And so for me, it was really, really hard because I feel like I didn't feel that sexy even before, or feel sexual or sensual before I was diagnosed. So then I think after the diagnosis and the treatment, it just like spun me into such a place that I felt like I could almost never return to anything that felt sexual or sensual. And I was wrong. And I'm not going to lie, it was definitely a process. And like, I joke that like, during COVID, I was like, hello, Amazon, like find me the best vibrator ever invented. Because I did rediscover myself like after the divorce and all that. And I discovered like self-pleasure again. And again, like I'm telling you, I have this narrative like, oh my God, my kids are going to listen to this podcast, but it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not taboo. We all do it. And maybe not everyone does it, but it's such a great way to feel sexy again and feel sensual again before you even think about entertain being with someone else.
Yeah, it's a safe way to like explore that.
Exactly.
And kind of get yourself back on.
Exactly.
Yeah, and also you need to put in like notes or something what results Amazon gave you.
That would not be a problem. And it's fun. It's like they're toys, right? They call them toys, and there's so many different brands and so many different.
Yes, and we both discovered them like late.
Yeah. I mean, I have some like single friends that are like, really? Like I've always had one, and it's kind of fun to like, be open to it and explore yourself in ways that maybe you never did before. I know for me, like I had ACT chemotherapy for the triple negative breast cancer, and I feel like it dried everything up. Like literally, my skin was dry, like vaginal dryness. Like I just felt I did not feel anything close to myself, and I remember being afraid. Just the thought of intercourse was so far from my mind because I just like physically didn't feel like I was capable of even doing it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that just made it even harder to actually do because then you're like tensed up with the anxiety. So
which makes it even worse and even more painful. So that's why, like I always say, like one of my best pieces of advice is like sensuality doesn't have to mean like instant penetration, like sex full on. It could mean holding hands or like kissing or like you had mentioned earlier, like, reading books to each other or like
poetry. Highly recommend it. It's hot.
Tell me about, is it like sexy poetry?
You know what? For me, even romantic poetry, but yeah, you can find sexy poetry.
I love that. You know what? Like there's actually an app that I love it's called Rosie, and she has some tools there specifically for those that are going through breast cancer, and she has like erotica novels that you can download. Like, so there's so many different ways to warm it up, if you will, right? And you could do it just with yourself and see like what turns you on, because maybe what turned you on before cancer isn't what turns you on now, and maybe listening to erotica or watching porn or like whatever it is, or maybe it's just going for a walk with your partner or like holding hands, like you just have to kind of like see what feels good and what is going to like make you feel sexual again. And it's not easy. It's definitely it's a process. It's a long game, right? It's not something you could snap your fingers. And everyone's case is different. Like I know you had mentioned someone in our community who we absolutely love, who's stage 4, and she and her husband are very open that they do not have penetrative sex.
Yeah. And I think for some people, they just kind of accept like it's not something that is a part of our relationship anymore or isn't going to be, and really, and it makes me sad, because of course, like you said, that isn't all there is to intimacy or even to sex.
Absolutely.
Like that's a very narrow view of sex, but it's valid. We don't want to write off if someone actually really enjoys penetration, then you want them to be able to experience that.
Exactly.
Still.
And especially, when you're going through something as life-changing as cancer, there are certain things you love. Like we both love to eat pizza. Love sex, like it's like there's certain things that that you consider non-negotiables, and your partner does too.
Yes, and everyone deserves to like get their needs met.
Absolutely,
it's like a balance. It's a balance of like what are the needs, and then just human like life and things happening, and you want to be with a certain person, and you may have to let go of certain things or rebrand your relationship. Like this is. What we do now that makes us feel close.
Exactly. And like now I'm going to drop a bomb on you. Like, how did it feel to have sex with a new partner after your marriage? Like the first time? Like a virgin.
It did feel like that.
Song.
It did feel like that because I got married really young. And so I felt like I missed out on having a lot of sexual experiences, honestly. But I never felt like, I'm like really missing out because like I said, like if nothing else, me and my husband like
time out.
Sexual
we have to like, okay, let's just take a minute. Husband.
Appreciate that term.
I love this term so much, and I'm going to give all the credit.
Yes,
I keep hitting this
thing
to our amazing friend Ricky Fairley, the founder of Touch the Black Breast Cancer Alliance. And you guys have to she tells her story so well, but like when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, she said she got rid of all the toxic stuff in her life, including her husband, which is her now ex-husband. But I feel like that should be a word. That should be in Wikipedia.
Everyone feel free to use that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, I think that my first sexual experience once I was divorced felt really freeing. You know, it felt freeing. I felt like, oh, I belong to myself again. Because again, I got married so young. I'd been married such a long time. And my marriage and myself, like at the time, we were really like steeped in religion. Oh, and so everything in my head was like, you know, a disconnect from like owning my own body and certainly like my own pleasure. So it felt really freeing. I found the right person to have the experience with, you know, like nothing more became of it. And that was totally fine. Like I wasn't looking for more. It was just about, like I've mentioned before, safety.
Yep.
And, you know, it can just be with a totally new, a stranger, as long as there's that like respect there, basic respect and consent, and someone you can be vulnerable with, you know. Exactly. And at the time, I hadn't even had surgery yet. I hadn't had my lumpectomy. Oh, I had ovary removal, oophorectomy.
Okay. Oh, so were you postmenopausal technically?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
So I but I just had the weirdest, most fortunate experience that I was like waiting after having that surgery for just the bomb drop, and I'm having hot flashes and I'm like experiencing all the things and a drop of libido, and it just didn't happen.
Right.
It just didn't happen for me, which was very helpful to me jumping into dating.
Absolutely.
You know, and kind of feeling like normal.
Right.
Overall, besides the fatigue, you know.
Of course.
And so, yeah, it really felt very freeing. And it also gave me an opportunity to really like claim ownership over myself and to feel confident. And I had to get to a place where I was like, you know what, I'm comfortable with my body. So if someone else isn't, then like that's their problem. I'm not going to take it on or feel bad about myself. I had spent a long time like really needing validation, you know, from my ex-husband when it came to everything about me. And so it was important. It was empowering. And I definitely just, you know, went into it. I mean, I always joke and say to people, like, just be you with, like, share who you are with, like, your whole chest. Like,
I love
this
that.
is me. I'm Deltra. Yes, I have 5 kids. No, it's not a burden. Like, you'd be lucky to know them. They're amazing humans. Shout out to my daughters.
I can't wait to meet
you know,
them,
like,
by the
and
way.
that's, you know, and yes, I have cancer. It's empowered me. I you know, I do a lot of work in the cancer community that I'm very proud of. So it's being me with my whole chest. And that's how I went into dating. And it's really hard to not be turned on by someone with confidence. Like, I think we all feel that way.
Everywhere. I love that.
That isn't like a cocky shot, that's just like in general as humans. And so again, like my current partner says, like, he never felt like I was like, oh, woe is me, or putting a bunch of things on him. It was just like, I'm handling all of my business, and he was watching me do that. And that was kind of my experience with anyone that I dated. You know, I took times out and tried not to feel bad about it when I needed to, when my energy just wasn't there to go out for dates or to, you know, fool around. I mean, or act like a high schooler, you know,
right?
When the kids are with my ex or with my mom, and I'm like, I can just hang out with someone all night, you know, if I want to. So I enjoyed that when it was there, and when it wasn't, I'm like, you know, I'm human. People have to deal with that.
I love that. Thank you for sharing. You have so many, like, I think out of what you just said, I could make like 14 t-shirts. I love all of it. I love all of it. But you know what's interesting that you and I share a lot? My first interaction, if you will, was with someone from my past. And and it was a comfort zone, and it was really sweet. And he knew me and my story, and I was scared out of my mind, and I was afraid like things weren't going to work, you know, on my side physically, but I was pleasantly surprised, and it was actually really nice. But I think you do have to be ready for it on so many levels, because I think, you know, again, everyone is different, but I think it's kind of cool if you can have that connection with someone that you are really comfortable with, whether it's someone from your past or someone that, you know, maybe you've had some kind of a flirtation with before, or just something, that versus a stranger. But maybe, hey, I'm going to take it off. You know, maybe sometimes a stranger is a good thing. I don't know.
You know why a stranger can be a good thing?
I do want to know desperately.
But you know what? And me and my partner have talked about this too, that sometimes you get more anxiety when you are really super into someone.
Ooh.
And you're so worried about like performance. And, you know, and I'm a big, like, it's just about like a journey and like a pleasure journey,
Yes.
sex. It shouldn't be about a destination, like just focus on like,
Right.
you know, getting each other And so, yeah, sometimes when you're like super into someone, you are more worried about their opinion of you. What are they going to think of my body? I hope they really like it.
Right.
What are they going to think about, you know, how I do my thing? And so, but when you're with a stranger, sometimes you just, you know, feel more free because you're
Right.
kind of like,
'Cause you're not,
I
like,
don't really care.
emotionally
you know,
invested.
like, not to say that you don't care, like, just on a basic human level. Like, you also want them to enjoy themselves because you should care about that.
Yes.
But you maybe aren't so in your head.
Right. Exactly.
You know?
I agree. And I will say, I did have some I love this new word I came up with, intersexual interaction with someone that I didn't know from before, that I met on an app. And like, I guess in a way it was really empowering, especially after having gone through divorce and breast cancer, to be like, you know what? Like, I never did this before. I never really dated, because I met my now ex-husband like when I was in college. So I really never truly dated. So I did have, you know, the experience of sharing intimacy with someone that I wasn't in a relationship with, and I had never done that before. So of course, all my married friends were like, "Tell me everything," you know. And what I realized, Deltra, is that it didn't work for me. I'm a relationship person, and I got, no matter what I did, I got emotionally attached, and it wasn't for me. But I am proud of myself for trying, and at least being open to it, and having the courage to be like, you know what? My breasts are my breasts. I am who I am, and like, it was almost like an experiment for me to see like if I could get my groove back, which I didn't have for very long.
Yeah.
For a long time, really.
Yeah, and that's fine. Different strokes for different folks, as they say.
Definitely. So. But it's like, I guess it's just about being open and knowing when you're ready, and to being open to trying different things. I'd like to give a very special thanks to my sponsor, Daiichi Sankyo, for supporting the Cancer Fashionista Foundation and making the Empowered Intimacy, Getting Your Sexy Back After Breast Cancer series possible. By listening to this podcast, you agree not to use the content for medical advice to treat any medical condition in either yourself or others. Please consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. This disclaimer also applies to all of my guests. And also, look, then there's like the dark side of all this, where we know there's some real physical limitations to what one can do, especially when it comes to like vaginal dryness, like where it's beyond the coconut oil, it's beyond the KY jelly. Yeah. And I want to say to anyone out there that's having like a legit, very difficult, like cannot have sexual intercourse, please see your doctor, and do not like be afraid to speak up and advocate for yourself. And it doesn't have to be your oncologist. You can go to your gynecologist. And if that gynecologist doesn't have information for you, go to somebody else, because I know for a fact.
Even sex therapists.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's there's dilators, there's so many different things that you can try before you give up on that part of your life, because that's what saddens me, that some people feel like they have to give that up on top of everything else. Yeah. And then it hurts. It can, put a damper on things with their partner.
Yeah, absolutely. We've heard way too many stories like that.
Yeah, and I feel like, especially if you have a good relationship with someone, it's really sad for, something, it's bad enough like where cancer can take away things like your self-esteem, and yes, maybe you have breast reconstruction, or maybe you don't, you lose your hair, it goes back. But it's like, man, don't take away like the connection I have with my partner, whether that's full-on penetration or not. There are ways to fix that. And like, I wouldn't know, like, unless you have cancer or like are plugged into the community, maybe some people don't even know to ask their doctor those questions. Yeah, it's like super important.
Sometimes the doctors don't seem to know the answer to those questions, but maybe they can connect you with the right people,
Exactly.
And if you have the right partner, which goes back to what I keep saying about, someone who is safe and supportive, then it's just an opportunity, like, start over, start fresh, kind of explore new things together and have like a pleasure journey together.
Exactly. And pleasure can have so many different forms, like
Yeah.
we've talked about. It doesn't have to always be, sex, but, it's obviously something that, we want to try and maintain. Like, what would you say, like, when did the emotional connection play a bigger role than the physical part?
In my current relationship, because it got to a point where it was not just all fun anymore. It's like, all right,
mean because
now
of the
I'm being,
diagnosis and
yeah,
everything?
it's like now I'm being open, I'm being vulnerable, I'm putting, the walls are coming down. I mean, at one point in time, I never like verbalize this to other people that I was dating because maybe we didn't get that far. But with my partner, early on, I remember there being a day where he could just tell I was really off, like energy wise and all of that, the vibe,
Right.
as they say. And he asked me like what was going on, and I just was like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I just, when I'm with you and we're together, I just want to be pretty and fun, Deltra.
Right. And it is in some ways, especially I feel like in the early stages of dating, it's almost like it's a part of you that you can nurture, and you could set everything else aside.
Yes.
As much as we love our children and our family and our jobs, like it can kind of go in another place, and then you can just enjoy a new connection and like the flirtation and like where are we going for dinner next and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's different from marriage where those things are intertwined. Like me and you have talked off camera about like when you no longer live with a partner and like kind of the getting to miss each other and, just how different that can look.
Yeah, like I've always said, like having a husband and having a boyfriend are
Yes.
two totally different things.
Yeah, they are. And sometimes I'm like, I want to stay in that little honeymoon period that only can exist when you like have that separation of space and or to some degree of lives. But at the time, dating for me was like I wanted that to be my escape. I wanted it to just be fun. I didn't want to bring my put my stuff on the person. I just wanted to have fun, especially when I was in my fall fun era, as I'll call
the whole fall fun era.
I was like, I'm just trying to hang out with people and like have a good time. But people did surprise me when I let my walls down, especially right before I had my lumpectomy, and a couple of people that I was still seeing. One is my partner who I'm now exclusive with. I shared with them, I have this lumpectomy coming up. And I was just so surprised because, I was prepared however they reacted, but it gave them opportunity to show up for me. Just like I'm always saying to people, I talk a lot about parenting with cancer, and people talk about, I'm trying to be strong for my kids, or I don't want to, let this show. And I always say, but you're kind of taking away an opportunity for them to practice compassion. And it was the same in my dating life. When I shared that I had lumpectomy coming up, the people that I was dating were able to check in on me and, how'd it go? How are you doing?
Right.
Dropped off food at my door.
No way.
My current partner, like I said, yeah, right. Yes, bring me soups and teas. But my current partner, like I said, I love to be read to since I was a kid. I still enjoy it. As the mom, I always, am reading to other people, so I enjoy when I'm like low energy, just snuggles in him to read aloud to me.
You?
Yes.
That is so sweet. Does this turn you on? It does a little bit.
A little bit. But when I wasn't well, like he loved to share favorite books with me and such. When I was, laid up recovering from my lumpectomy, but I can't imagine, trying to pretend for like that couple of weeks that there was another reason that I was, not able to go out, or that I was feeling fine and acting really on in high energy, because you just can't keep that up forever. We're not meant to, we're human.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I love just the way that you like paint the whole picture about like connection, and there's so many different ways to connect, and as important as sex is, like there's also the emotional component, and it's like finding what works for you. And this is definitely not a one size fits all. That's why I think it's great that you and I both have different backgrounds and different stories and different experiences. And like some things we have found that have worked and some things don't, you know, and I'm proud of myself for putting myself out there when I was afraid to. And, you know, from a sexual standpoint, like I don't, it's so funny. I'm 11 years out now and I don't even really, I don't have the same fear anymore. I feel like I've gotten over it. But I'm also menopausal. So it's like now I'm also, you know, as an older woman, I deal with like, listen, we all have sometimes in the back of our minds, oh my God, am I going to need the lube tonight or not? You know, like it's, you know, you want to perform like when you're.
But on a real note, just say yes to the lube, everyone, all the time.
It can never be a bad ride with the lube. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe we just said that.
Say yes to lube. New slogan.
Yeah, but it's true again. Like, see how I'm like blushing? It's like I want to take that taboo, take that whole, you know, like take it. It's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
And like, I'll tell you sometimes even now when I'm in CVS and I'm like, I do look, I'm like, or any of like the soccer mom or anyone I know, like, or my kids like, Mom, like, oh, hey, what's up? You know, like, but yeah, it's nothing to be ashamed of. And like, these are all tools that many of us need, breast cancer or not, definitely as we get older. And I think it's so important to accept yourself where you are, and if you have trouble, to know to reach out, you know, to your medical community or to your, you know, fellow, you know, if you're in the breast cancer community, to talk to us, to listen to, you know, resources like this podcast, to kind of figure out like, hey, what are my options even? Like, oh, and even for women to know that there are other women out there, because I bet you $1 million there's definitely people who are tuning in going, oh man, I thought I was the only one.
Yeah.
And that's what breaks my heart. You know, because I know I don't want anyone to ever feel like they are the only ones.
Yeah, and I think we've all been there. And I never felt it more than, you know, being diagnosed and, you know, I have my friends, but there's just certain things they're not going to understand since they don't have the same diagnosis. And I mean, my doctor, when I brought it up to her, she was just kind of like, I've never really been asked those questions. Like most of her patients are much older.
See, and that's like a stigma, right? Like,
and it, you know, and I was kind of looked at like, you should be more concerned about, you know, just staying alive and how you're doing in your scans. But it's like, ma'am, I also really want to enjoy.
Yeah, you want to live your life. You want to have a quality of life, and like, and you are such an incredible example of this, and that's why I had to like. You were such the inspiration to this series, Deltra, because like when I had you on my podcast, I was like, man, like where were you 11 years ago when I was diagnosed? Because you're fearless when it comes to this stuff. And I feel like your current partner is so lucky to have somebody like you that is so strong, despite everything that's going on, that you've got your kids covered. Your kids are so lucky to have you as a mom. Aww. You've got all this stuff covered. So you're the prize, you know? And that's what I want to tell everyone listening, that, you know, yeah, breast cancer and sex, like, are it's a difficult combination, but it's certainly not impossible. And there's a way to like, to be able to do both and to do it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to us than just what we can provide physically.
Absolutely. And, you know, like, I just want to make sure anyone that's listening, they know that there are options and there are ways around these things. And like, even to go back, you know, a couple of episodes, like the first episode we talked about, like step number 1, it's just like loving yourself, you know, accepting yourself first. That has to happen first. And then like, how do you get through difficult breakups or divorces? Like, you know, all these layers. And then, you know, like intimacy and dating, like all these things are hard without breast cancer being a part of it. And, you know, I feel really proud of us that we are able to actually sit here, because this, like, I don't want to toot our own horn, but to sit here and have these conversations, you know, it's putting ourselves out there in a totally different way, but it's in the, you know, effort to help others that are going through it. Because I know for a fact, like when we had our initial episode, I got so many DMs like, can you guys talk about that more? Like, I need more of that, because it's such a unique, it's really a niche, and it shouldn't be like this whole topic, you know? But but you're amazing, and you're an inspiration
so
to me.
are
You really
you.
are. You really are. And any final thoughts, like for anyone that's tuning in? Like, what advice would you give someone that's like, I don't know if I could have sex again. Like, I don't feel sexy, and I have metastatic breast cancer.
That's a big question. I think I definitely would say you can explore, relearning yourself, embracing your new self, while also, because like I said, I felt like time is of the essence. So I want to get out there and I want to be having fun. And I feel like I was just fortunate that I met some really great humans. But I think there are a lot of really great humans. As much as we talk about the bad ones, and I'm a total millennial and listen to lots of true crime. So I'm always like, there's bad apples to my kids. But there are a lot of good, understanding people, especially I feel like once you've lived some life, like, people our age and such, you'll meet people who are understanding and supportive and can actually help you grow, and be comfortable and explore your sexuality in your new body. But big parts of it are just embracing who you are and putting it out there and saying, this is who I am. This is what you get, and recognizing that you have a lot to offer. I bet if you took a pen and paper and wrote down the things you had to offer outside of, sex, like traditional and whatever you might think of sex as, you have so much more to offer that makes you worthwhile. And you can find partners that will explore with you, like, who won't give up, because like we said, it's really sad when someone gives up on something that they do want to be a part of the relationship. There are wonderful surgeons. There's even surgical options to help with, vaginal rejuvenation. There are wonderful sex therapists now because things aren't as taboo. So there's a lot of help out there.
So much great advice, and it's also true. And, I think, like, for me, I think just to not be afraid, to be open to meeting new people, and not to be afraid, like, to ask your doctor if you're having trouble, if you're having vaginal dryness or loss of libido, because there are many of us that are like, I'm not worried about vaginal dryness.
Yeah.
I just don't even think about sex or care about it anymore. And that makes them sad. So, there are definitely resources out there. Talk to your doctor. Like I said, I love, Rosie is an amazing app, and there are just so many amazing resources out there. And then, again, not to toot our own horn, that's exactly why I created this platform, so that we can share real stories from our own lives, both very different, but to be able to kind of represent, so many of us that have so many different situations with and experiences with breast cancer, whether it's early stage or stage 4. 5 kids, 2 kids, whatever your situation is, we want to be able to kind of, drive it home and relate it back to everyone. And just to know that you guys are not alone, and not to be afraid to ask us questions. And we'll keep talking about this forever, right?
Absolutely. We could go on about this.
Well, I'm just so proud to have done this series with you. And for anyone that's skipping around and maybe you didn't listen to the first couple of episodes, I urge you to check out the first 3 for sure. Because it's like, I feel like they're like these beautiful layers. Like, we kind of walked into each one as a phase, and I think there's a lot that can be learned from each one of them. And I'm just so proud to be having this conversation with you. And all I can say for everyone that's tuned in is just to love yourself, accept yourself, and just to be open. And thank you again, Deltra, for sharing so much of you with all of us. We adore you.
Oh, I adore you too. And thank you so much for inviting me to have these conversations, because they're so needed.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode of Empowered Intimacy, Getting Your Sexy Back After Breast Cancer. If you enjoyed it, be sure to check out the rest of our episodes in this series. In the meantime, let's stay in touch. Be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram @CancerFashionista. And remember, cancer can take many things away from you, but it can't take away the essence that makes you the beautiful woman that you are.